awesome or what? Can we please stand for the pledge to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, this isn't here, so who's doing roll call? You will? Great. Have at it.
Mr. Beazold?
Here.
Mr. Pendry?
Here.
Mr. Blau?
Here.
Mr. Ellison?
Here.
Ms. McIntosh?
Here.
And Mr. Strange?
Here.
All right. Entertain a motion, two motions, one for the approval of the minutes of the December 5th zoning update meeting and December 19th council meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
Any questions? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. This is fun. We are now going to do our swearing-in ceremony, and we have Judge Blau with us tonight to perform the task, so please do your thing. I don't know how we're doing it. Oh, Judge Sizemore, sorry, I didn't even know that you were here. My apologies. The black robe should have given it away.
We like to keep it, real for you guys and keep you guys guessing. And I figured it was appropriate to swear you in today with both district court judges.
That's awesome.
And of course, I was born and raised in Fort Thomas, bought my first house in Fort Thomas, and of course, she's raising her family in Fort Thomas, so it seemed only appropriate where sort of the beginning and now the next generation, as it were. So again, thank you guys for giving us this opportunity. It's
Sure.
a wonderful opportunity to come back home and see everybody, meet some of the new faces on council as well. And to thank everybody here in the city. And in fact, you have a huge crowd today. I guess they heard Aaron was coming out today, so I'm assuming Seeger was out. Well, are you guys ready to be sworn at by us?
Yes, swear at us, please.
All right. One of the few times you can swear on record, right?
Yes.
Well, if everyone can go ahead and raise your right hands. And you can go ahead and repeat your names, and we can just go around the room.
Eric Strange. Adam Blau. Jeff Beazold.
Oh, me, Eric Haas. Andy Ellison.
Ben Pendry.
Lauren McIntosh.
Do you solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and that I will faithfully execute to the best of my ability the office of City Council Member and Mayor of the City of Fort Thomas according to law?
And I do further solemnly swear that since the adoption of the present Constitution, I have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state nor out of it, nor have I accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have I acted as second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offending to help God.
Do we have to repeat that?
No. Or it's just like getting married to say I do.
I do. I do.
Very good. Congratulations, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much.
With that, Mayor, we turn it back over to you unless Aaron, you want to say anything to anybody?
Nothing further, just congratulations, everyone.
Thank you all very much for coming to do this tonight. Really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much for the honor, guys. Thank you very much.
Mark Collier, did you want to speak for a minute? Okay, if anybody else would like to speak during this session, please go up to the table up there and sign in. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor, and congratulations to the new council, or condolences. My name is Mark Collier. I am here representing the Fort Thomas Business Association. So I am the president of that association. Wanted to update council and mayor on some of the things that we've been working towards as we establish 2023 strategic imperatives for our association. So we kind of stole the city's playbook on comprehensive plan to get everybody involved, to understand what we need to focus on as an organization and as an association. And so we did a micro version of that. Starting in September, we went through a whiteboard planning session. And then into October, captured ideas for group discussion. Into November, we sent a survey. Looks like my volume stopped here. What's that? All right. I'll try to speak loudly. First, hopefully, the only mishap. There we go. We're back. And then into December, we reported the results out to the membership. So I wanted to share that with you. We have 114 members in our association, 84 of which are 41075 businesses. The survey results were really, really good. We had a response rate of 64%. So really, really good. We started as a goal to try to get 50% of members to provide some input on that survey. And what that told us is that we narrowed it down to essentially 9 different questions that the association wanted to work towards and then share with council to say, here are the things that we're going to focus on this year. We wanted SMART goals, so that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And those 3 strategic imperatives that I will share with council, mayor, and city administrator Kramer that we'll send to you guys are these. We want the city to help us advocate the city spending, the money that you're already spending within your budget, to help focus and put those monies towards 41075 businesses. So we've got some plans in helping identify what is already in the budget and then spreading that amongst the businesses here in town. That would be one of our strategic imperatives. Another would be to help build a more robust opportunity for businesses to participate in 41075 events.
I've got a magic button here, Mark, and I just keep cutting you off.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's not it.
And then one more would be just to help identify and where it is relevant to provide some feedback and resources with the city as it relates to figuring out where there may be opportunity for additional parking within central business districts. I know that's always been something that the city is looking to try to do, but we want to be there to help facilitate that conversation. Looks like you've cut me off again, so I'm going to leave it at that. Matt, I will make sure to get this information to you so that you can disperse it to the council. And really, it's just we want an open door communication with council. Please come to any or all of our meetings. It's a monthly calendared event that we will share with you again. And again, congratulations on being elected, and thank you for serving.
Thank you, Mark.
Hey, real quick, I think the last time we did this, we gave the opportunity for people to have pictures with their families and friends prior to the meeting, so if anybody had to leave.
Are they still here?
I don't know. It wasn't I think my brother left, but I know that Lauren has a little one, probably ready to get home, so I thought that
Absolutely. Yeah, we can take a break and do that.
and then unless they want to sit around and hear it.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. And the mics sound great, by the way.
Yeah, if they keep working, we'll have to work on that. No, if you all want to take family pictures or something, please, let's do that. We don't have a very full agenda tonight, so let's take that time. Are the
Black Rose still here?
I don't know if they are. I think did they run out?
Yeah, they just went up.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll get home. Somebody else might be better. I'll get home
So, you want to do it here in front, and I'll get out of the way.
I just got a present sauces.
On every time.
They'll be out there someday, right?
Yeah, did the whole family. You guys are here? Go ahead. They did.
Oh, okay. And then it happened.
He's always trying to get in everywhere, I know. You gotta
Want to come up some more hands?
Alrighty, everyone ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Robin, are you good? Oh, yeah.
Sorry. One more and I'll.
Yay. Now let's get all of these.
Go on, back.
Greg Newberry would like to speak.
Yeah.
Please come up, state your name and address for the record.
Didn't know I was gonna get a head start here. My name's Greg Newberry. I live on Cannon Ridge. And thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this. And welcome to the new space.
Yeah, thanks.
I wanted to talk to you all tonight because I just had an issue happened recently, and I wanted to present it to you. And, you know, I know there's a lot of efforts going on here in Fort Thomas about progress and moving forward, and the Planning Commission is meeting, and what kind of city do we want to have, what kind of town do we want to have. And to me, it's always been, it's a quality of life issue. So I think of, my wife and I are new to Fort Thomas. We moved here about 25 years ago. So, you know, we're working in, you know, we're working into the whole thing. But it's always been, you know, we've always enjoyed it because, you know, it's just a friendly town and it's a neighborly town. And, you know, as you move forward with this town, you always have these challenges of progress. It's a tightrope to keep that feeling and that quality of life. So for all, it's just been, the quality of life here has just been great. Like a couple of years ago, we had a rude awakening when they decided to do the development over in Beverly Hills. And I remember I talked to some couple people on council and say, hey, can we oppose this thing? Because we live at Cannon Ridge, which is on Alexandria Pike, which is right across the street from that. And we went to the county zoning meeting, which I guess it was the big meeting, and saw the presentation from Ashley Developers. And they voted unanimously, I think 19-0, to like change the building codes to allow this thing. They hadn't done a traffic study. They hadn't done an environmental impact study. So one of the results of that is all the deer have now come over to our street. They've been followed by all the coyotes. And so we hear these, like, you know, every couple of weeks you hear these coyotes tearing something apart in the farm behind us, and it's frightening. That's not why I'm here. But I'm just telling you, the things are changing, and we're aware of it, and you guys are aware of it too. My background is in advertising, and a long time ago, I launched the Party Source down in Bellevue. At that time, it was called Liquor Outlet. The owner called it Liquor Outlet and was able to talk him into not calling it Liquor Outlet. It was really successful, so I'm not a stranger to bourbon or party stores or anything like that. When we moved to Cannon Ridge, at the end of our street was the Oasis Bar, and Moore's Building Supply was where Depps is at now. And never had a problem with any of those folks. And I remember one night the Oasis had this loud music was coming out of it, and we called them up and they said, oh yeah, our air conditioner's on the fritz. We opened up all our doors and windows, but we'll turn them, you know, we'll take care of it. Again, no problems. Everybody got along. Terry Mann, I don't know if you know him. He lives up our street. He would have a Kentucky Derby party every year. And he would, so like 50 people or whatever would come to his Derby party, but he'd get a van to shuttle people from the medical center up the street. So there weren't any parking issues on our street. We don't have any sidewalks. So again, everybody got along. And I was a bourbon club member at Depps. So I'm familiar with Depps when they took over Moore's. And it was a family-run operation, and everybody's friendly. Again, everybody got along. Perfect fit. I've never felt infringed on here. And that all changed on Saturday, January 14th. So I work late, I'm a writer, and so I'm up really late. But at 7 o'clock in the morning, our dog started barking, going crazy. And my wife looked out the window, and there were cars parked up and down our street. And there were hordes of guys coming down the street, going back up the street. And this lasted till 11 o'clock. So it went from 7 a.m. to 11 o'clock. I didn't know what was going on. My wife called a neighbor who had tried to get back home, who had to redirect himself to go up Memorial Parkway, go the back way in to get to Cannon Ridge. Another friend I talked to called, I got a text from her. Let me just read what she said. They were coming up, They were coming from Mook Road. They were headed to Woodfield Elementary to her daughter's basketball game. When we reached Southgate Medical Building, we were stopped by over 100 people coming out of Depps, crossing the street to get into the medical lot, to get into their cars, which made us late for her granddaughter's basketball game. There was no direction of traffic at all. People were pulling out and walking right into the traffic to get across the street into their cars. It was total chaos. But again, like hordes of people. We were just inundated, and I didn't know what was going on. So I went in there on Monday and discovered, as I went in, I see them putting a big sign up on the front of the building, so it's now called Liquor Barn. And I went in and I talked to a guy. I just went up to the counter and said, "What was going on here Saturday?" And he said, "Well, we had a Pappy Van Winkle auction." Oh, well, that's interesting. I said, "Well, who do I talk to about that?" And I said, "You know, I live here on Cannon Ridge." And he says, "Well, you can we have a comment section on our website." I said, "Well, I don't want to put a comment on your website. I mean, who's in charge of this auction? Who can I talk to at Liquor Barn?" He said, "Well, that's somebody, you know, we're at headquarters in Lexington or Louisville, I forget where, but," he goes, "I don't know the guy's name." I go, "You don't know the guy's name of who you work for?" He goes, "Tim something." So anyway, this guy became totally evasive, wouldn't give me any information whatsoever. And I said, "So what is this thing?" He says, "Well, we have these auctions for Pappy Van Winkle." And so I did some research, and I said, "Well, you know, I really need to talk to somebody about this." He says, "Well, I'm the assistant manager." I said, "Do you have any say-so in what this goes on?" He goes, "No, we do it at all our stores, and we're going to do it again." He was kind of a jerk about the whole thing.
So how often is this gonna happen?
At least twice a year.
Okay.
Okay? So I did a little research, and I'll pass this out to you guys. I think there's 6 pounds.
So you're looking to the city for some help in dealing with traffic, et cetera, during
Well, I think
these times?
I'd like to go further than that. I'm based on this guy's attitude. They have, I think, 6 or 7 stores. They're in Louisville, Lexington. He really didn't seem to think he cared 2 squats about me. But here, let me pass this around. Let's see, I got one left. No.
I can provide a little information about this as well. I own a liquor store. I'm also on this alcohol retailer board. This is kind of a unique situation here with Liquor Barn. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with it. Davin Brox owned it originally, and then it went to Liquor Barn. Liquor Barn was bought out by a guy named Jonathan Blue, kind of like a side project from someone else, and it recently sold to Go Puff. You guys familiar with this at all? So Go Puff is a nationwide liquor store, liquor company, and liquor stores all over. They might be the largest liquor store owner in the country. They got in trouble for delivering alcohol across state lines, because certain states you have to do it in that state. So they originally had people. They started off with some group in California just doing it in schools, and it blew up. And I think they were delivering stuff from Ohio to Kentucky, so they needed Kentucky base, so they bought Liquor Barn out.
Okay.
So this is a big entity, right? Liquor Barn itself was large prior to this. Davin Brox itself was large before Liquor Barn even bought it. So, and I don't even think they were giving away that many bottles of Happy at like 3 different locations. But it was unbelievable. I live close to that too. People send me videos. I saw some.
Okay, so you're familiar with it. So it starts at 7 a.m. Just kind of walk you through this thing. So if you go to the Liquor Barn lottery guidelines, first they say they're going to give out wristbands to the first 1,500 people that show up. So they're expecting to give out wristbands to the first 1,500 people that show up. How many people are expecting to show up? Like 5,000? And then they have on their announcement that parking is limited. Well, if you have limited parking, so where are those 5,000 people going to park? On my street, on Blossom. They went all the way up the street. Went all the way up Alexander Park.
Do you know when the next date is for this?
No, he was pretty chippy with me.
Okay. Well, we can look into this and see if we can find out some more information about it and get back to you on it.
Well, I think they've,
I would assume a gathering like this would require some kind of permit.
well, it's parking is, so they get parking is limited. If you go to this next page, you can see their map, so if there's 6 or 7 stores, you go and click on a pull down menu. Oh, we can go to Fort Thomas. So anybody in Kentucky can come to Fort Thomas, get a wristband to enter this raffle. And again, I was a bourbon member with Depps. They had online raffles all the time. I've got a nice little collection of bourbon as a result of it. So why they have to have this public auction or this public raffle and have hordes of people show up and trample on everybody's property really is beyond me.
Mr. Newberry, if you would, allow me to reach out to Liquor Barn. I know they're new. I mean, they just changed their name. I think it's been Liquor Barn for about a year, but it just recently changed. If you could let me look into it, talk to them and try to figure this out and see what's going on. I can make contact with the medical center and make sure that they are aware that they're using their parking lot. So I mean, we've got some ability, I think, to control some of what they're doing.
If you go through
ensure
here, some
that
shots of the crowd.
I saw. So
Got
I
the
appreciate
guys
you bringing
lining
that
up before 7 a.m. and pre-dawn line. You've got
7 at night.
Yeah, was it 7 at night? So they're camping out. So then you've got, so what I call the new gateway to Fort Thomas. I've heard this, Alexandria Pike as the gateway to Fort Thomas. So our new gateway to Fort Thomas is this huge honking Liquor Barn sign. Welcome to Fort Thomas, the home of liquor. That wasn't there before. Depps was fine. They were a family-run operation. They were respectful. They treated their neighbors right. And these guys, they're this huge, as you said, this huge corporate entity is now coming in and taking over, and they don't really care. And you could prohibit these auctions. It's not going to affect them one iota. They can still do an auction online. This is just one store. So there's a lot of things you can do. I just like to just prohibit the auctions. You guys want to act like jerks, and don't have your auctions here at 7 o'clock on Saturday mornings.
Appreciate you bringing it to our attention. We'll take a look at it. Matt will get back to you.
Yeah, can you give me your phone number or give you my card, whatever works for you, so I can get back with you once I talk to them? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure
All right, the next on the
there's a bunch
list.
of PR mumbo jumbo, but
Thank you.
that's what it'll be.
Thank you. The next on the list is Peggy Maggio. Peggy.
Good evening. As usual, I've got some handouts, so I'll come around real quickly.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here just to briefly discuss two matters tonight. The first one being the comprehensive plan update, the second one being historical preservation. The reason I'm talking to you about the comprehensive plan update tonight, as you all know, it by statute, it needs to be revised every 5 years. And I'm hoping, at least on the zoning provisions of the comprehensive plan, we'll have a robust look at the comprehensive plan. The consultant who's been hired by the city, Elisa Duffy Rogers of CT Consultants, has both now in writing and in verbally talked about that she's basing her recommendations on the comprehensive plan. As you all know, the comprehensive plan is 5 years old, but the discussions regarding the comprehensive plan started in 2016. I worked for Children's Hospital, and I can say with certainty that Children's Hospital would never make one decision based on data that is 5 to 7 years old. And that's where we are with the comprehensive plan right now. So right now, we're just implementing something that's already outdated. Secondly, the comprehensive plan is problematic on several fronts. First one, there's a lot of discussion in the city that people didn't know that the comprehensive plan was even happening. It was advertised as a visioning exercise. I, for one, had absolutely no idea that a process was happening that might change what our city even looked like. Secondly, there was a survey that was done in conjunction with a comprehensive plan. In that survey, the vast majority of Fort Thomas citizens who responded said that they did not want new types of housing types in Fort Thomas. But yet our consultant is going forward and proposing new types of housing. For example, in a January 9th memo, Elisa wrote, the community plan in the Midway focus area discusses encouraging new housing on Midway Court. The plan states, quote, encourage new housing development along Southview Avenue and Midway Court. Redevelopment of this area should be designated to take advantage of views of the reservoir, with new housing targeted to empty nesters and young professionals. Two things. First, we've been told that there's not going to be any changes to the residential districts. Both of these streets are right now single-family zoning. So I don't know where this is coming from. But secondly, she's basing this and many other provisions of the zoning update on that 2018 comprehensive plan. That brings us to these handouts. And the first one is a PowerPoint from a 2019 presentation to City Council regarding the implementation of the 2018 comprehensive plan. As you'll see, the second plank of that slide, which is directed towards zoning, states that the subcommittee on zoning should be reconstituted before any zoning changes are recommended or even a consultant hired. This never happened. So I'm hopeful that this year, I know a lot of you are brand new here and this is a new year, so I'm hoping to get this in the calendar in the new year. That on the calendar goes a comprehensive rewrite of at least the zoning portion. That not only is the data 5 to 7 years old, but it was written before One Highland was ever put up. And I think things have changed in the city and views have changed. And I would just ask that we do a rewrite and that we re-engage citizens groups. Elisa, in many of her presentations across the country, talks about the necessity of citizen engagement when it comes to rezoning. And I'm hopeful that all of you will agree that we would have that kind of citizen engagement and that when we reconstitute or have a new zoning subcommittee to look at the rewrite of the 2018 comprehensive plan. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous, guys. This is like a different vibe than the mess hall. So the second handout there is an email exchange with me and Kevin Marbian. And this was one afternoon. I'm looking at the old proposed zoning code that's been taken away, but realizing that the two streets that I live by, Miller and Lumley, were going to have two families permitted by right. And so I was talking to Kevin about that, and I asked him if he would email Lisa just to make sure that is in fact what she was proposing. And as you can see, what she wrote back was, well, I did propose it because of blah, 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 blah. But at the end, she said, at the end of the day, this is a policy choice. So when we're talking about the comprehensive plan, we're talking about who makes the policy in Fort Thomas. And I'm really hoping that who makes the policy is you all, our elected officials, not our appointed planning commission. So for those reasons, I would ask you to, again, number one, reconstitute the citizen group when it comes to zoning. And number two, please do a comprehensive rewrite of the comprehensive plan, at least in regard to zoning. And then finally, I'd like to talk just very briefly tonight about historical preservation in Fort Thomas, because I think there's been some confusion. As you know, I think I've talked to almost all of you individually. Beth Johnson is the executive director of the Greater Cincinnati Preservation Association. Beth was the historical director in Covington, then she went down to Austin, Texas, and now she's come back. Beth took a look at what we had on the books in Fort Thomas and found that we have ordinances, number one, designating the Midway and our CBD up here as historical protected districts. And number two, putting in effect that those districts are regulated by design review guidelines. Now, in the last couple of weeks, I've heard at Planning and Zoning, one of the zoning commissioners saying he had no idea that there even is historical ordinances in place. I had listened to the Design Review Board meeting, and one of the people on the Design Review Board meeting said that she was on there to promote whatever changes would help businesses. Now, that's an okay goal to do that, but that's not the function of the Design Review Board by ordinance. The function of the Design Review Board is to make sure that the properties that are in those two protected historic districts comport with what the design review guidelines are. If that promotes business, great. But if it doesn't mean that that doesn't happen. I've had people in the city, employees tell me that these historic ordinances mean nothing, that they're very weak, blah, 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 blah. So that's why I wanted to give you guys all a copy of these ordinances tonight. The underlining and the italics are mine, so that's just for my own personal use. But you can see on the second page that there's an ordinance that clearly states that these two districts are protected historic districts. There is an ordinance that clearly says that for any alteration or demolition to happen in these two districts, there has to be a certificate of appropriateness. In the ordinance, the design review board, as well as the design review guidelines, are in there as the law. So I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Beth Johnson is willing to come and talk to City Council. She's been in talks with Matt about doing that. She's given him a PowerPoint presentation, just very quickly, 15 minutes. As there's confusion apparently among city employees, among design review board, among planning commission, Beth Johnson's organization, it's not her organization, it's the Greater Cincinnati Preservation Association, will give a training. They'll come in and talk about what these mean. And then number 3, I'm asking, what Beth recommends is that we have a very slight change to our zoning code that would provide notice that these ordinances are in fact in place. Dayton and Bellevue have the substantially similar ordinance in place. It's very short, very sweet. And now we're revising the zoning code. Our consultant, Elisa Duffy Rogers, talks over and over again about cleaning up the code. So while we're cleaning it up, let's get this in the zoning code in this very short and sweet language so that our zoning map is changed to show where historic districts are. And that's all for me tonight. Thank you very much for listening.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Before we move on to the next part, we're down to reports of boards, committees, and commissions, which we don't have any. We're down to reports of officers. Before we do that, I did want to make a comment. Sherry, thank you for what you've done. She has done all the decorating and color choices and all that stuff with some input from some other folks, but she's done an amazing job. I think she was a little worried about trying to open up for tonight's meeting because it's not all done yet. So you all have to come back at a future meeting to see when she gets everything else finished. But she's done just a magnificent job, and I want to thank you so much for that. All right, we're to reports of officers, fire department. I don't know where to look now. Chief.
What I want to add to my report tonight is for 3 weeks ago, it really changed our CPR program and what happened on the Monday night football game. So far, we've had an exorbitant amount of requests, which we're continuing to fulfill. We've we trained 60 new people.
Wow, that's great.
And AEDs. And we'll continue to do that. So if anyone in the community wants CPR training, just get on our website, go to the fire tab on the public education, and I'll direct you as far as requesting that. Councilman Blau had asked me before the meeting about AEDs in the city. And we have AEDs everywhere in the city, even in the ballparks for Tower Park and Rossford, seasonally. So the ones that are not seasonal are in my office right now. But in the mess hall, in the armory, there are AEDs there. We don't have any AEDs on site here because the fire department we're right here. We're close to them. So that's all I have to report.
Great, thanks. I'll entertain a motion to receive and file.
He's the state.
Yeah, what are we gonna do without Ken? He's here tonight. Yes.
I'll take Ken's spot. I'll receive and file.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Police Department report. Chief.
Thanks, Mayor. We also have AEDs in our police cars, piggybacking off what the chief said. We carry them around too, have been for a long time. I had a couple things to talk about that happened in the past 2 weeks. First, about 2 weeks ago, we had a pretty big arrest at West Banco. 6 members of the felony lane gang, as they call themselves, were arrested for multiple fraud and theft charges. That group has been around for about 10 years, and at this point, they've hit every state. Been in trouble several times. They just keep recirculating what they do. There's a federal task force, an FBI task force, and it was good that we got them when they were here. It wasn't good that they were here, but I was happy that we got 6 members of that group. So good job by our guys. Last week we were in the news one night for a missing teen. I'm happy to say she came home the same night that we did a press release. She was absent of her own decision, and she came home of her own decision. So that was a good resolution to that situation. And then lastly, we had a pretty good snow event yesterday morning. Seemed like a good time just to remind people that if we have that amount of snow on the ground, don't go out unless you absolutely have to. If you do have to go out, please be careful, drive slowly, leave a lot of space between you and other cars, slow down before you get to a curve. And we have a nice link that we're putting on our website from Kentucky Transportation Cabinet to talk about driving in snow and ice. So if you get a chance to read that. That's all I had. Thanks.
Awesome, and yes, great job to the police department on that bank situation. That was absolutely amazing, and about the teenager who was missing, I understand there's like 500 people on Facebook out there passing the word around, and evidently that kind of stuff helps. So sometimes social media can be a good thing in those situations, so that's great. Does anybody have any questions for the chief? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? You guys will get the hang of it. Don't worry about it. It'll come to you. All right. City Administrator's report. Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a pretty lengthy report today. We've had a lot going on last month, so I apologize ahead of time. The city building is coming along. We did get approval. I feel like this is really loud. We got approval to, is that better?
It's working great.
Right. Yeah, if you can't hear us now, there might be an issue with so the city building is nearing completion. We don't have our certificate of occupancy where staff's allowed to work here yet. We did get approval from the building inspector to be here since the common areas were all complete, wiring and everything. The main 2 things we are waiting on are 2 electrical panels that may or may not have shipped sometime over the last 3 weeks from an unknown location, hopefully coming here. So once we get those, that is the final for us to be able, the staff to be able to move in here. We are hoping here in the next couple of weeks to be able to do that, but we'll see. So I appreciate everybody, especially staff and Sherry, who's and the contractors put everything into getting the common areas very clean and presentable tonight. Although it's not done, there's still going to be a lot left. So once this is what we have as our soft opening, we'll have our grand opening and invite staff to come through, or sorry, citizens to come through and really take a good look at the building once it's complete. So that'll be an exciting time.
Matt, they originally told us we would be in the building in March. They just didn't tell us what year.
It will be this year. No question. It will be this year. So we're almost there. But the other thing was starting off this new year. I've been here almost 7 months now, a little over 7 months maybe, and we've started focusing on some public meeting procedures. So that was something that's been instituted this month. Basically, what it is limiting citizens' comments to the council or the boards, depending on which meetings there are, to 3 minutes. We want everyone to sign in. That really helps me out when citizens who want to speak sign in. One, it allows us to call those that want to talk up to make it a little bit more orderly, but it also allows me to have their information here so I can call back, because when people do talk, I like to follow up with them. So it provides a place for a phone number and topic. So that's something that I know it's going to take a little bit because we haven't done that too much, but moving forward, that'll help out and streamline some meetings and make sure that comments are during those sections of the agenda, so council and the boards can focus on business at hand, which is the purpose of the meetings. So anybody has any questions on that, then they can reach out to me. Public Works has had 2 snow emergencies, snow events, sorry, over the last month. One was on Sunday. It was a pretty heavy snow. As soon as they got here at 7:30, it hit them during that. So it was a challenging event, but they were able to get through it, and I think they've done a good job on those 2. The other one was right before Christmas, and that was some pretty heavy snow. So I appreciate them. They all stayed safe and did a good job during those events. Grow Grant has been extended until this Friday at 4 p.m. We had some submissions last week that had an old form. We have no idea where they got the old form from. It must be in cyberspace somewhere. So we have asked, and we got multiple, so it's not just one person. So we did request them to resubmit and extended the deadline till this Friday at 4 p.m. If you've seen that out there. We did start a foreclosure process this week on 3 properties. All the properties has over $10,000 fines to the city for violations, and they have not corrected their violations yet. I've sent it out to council for their review, and just to let council know that process is starting. And there will be another round here coming up in the next couple months once we start getting a handle on the other large offenders.
Can you talk through that process a little bit? I've not experienced it before. I don't want to use the word necessary, but something needs to be done, but it does seem a little extreme.
Yeah, so what that does is, what I'll do is the staff will create a analysis of it to see if it's something that we need to pursue. And generally what that is if we've exhausted all other options of trying to get them to comply. It's not the fines, it's the fines and the fact that they haven't complied. Nothing has made them correct this. And these are properties that we get multiple requests from citizens constantly calling and complaining. Essentially it makes us look bad. All we do eventually is fine, and there's only so many things that we can actually fix on our own. In 2 of the 3 properties we've had maybe all 3, we've had talks with the actual owners, and there's just nothing getting done. So we do an analysis on that, and if the mayor approves that, then Tim is given the properties. And what he's going to do is he's going to give another letter, give him 30-day notice saying, look, 30 days, you need to make some corrections. You need to at least give us a plan on how you're going to fix these violations. If that's the case, the foreclosure process does not start on those properties. So we're giving them, even though the citations they've received every week for how long have been there and kind of doing the same thing, this is going to be a letter from Tim saying, look, we are going to start foreclosure. At that point, if there's been no resolution in those 30 days, either they haven't reached out to us, they haven't satisfied their fines, or they haven't made any progress at all, then we'll move to foreclosure. And what that does is that starts the court process for foreclosure. Generally, when you start the foreclosure process, it doesn't get to the end where you're actually foreclosing on the property and auctioning it. At some point during that, either the bank is going to pick up, if there's from my experience, and Tim, jump in at any point and correct me, but the bank will come in and say, look, we'll pay the fines and we'll work with the homeowner to get this corrected, because our goal is not to take the property. Our goal is not to fine citizens. We hate fining them, but when we give them warnings and nothing's done, it's just a requirement. It's the only way we can try to get anything done around here. So generally, most of these are going to be resolved during that period of the foreclosure being started. That's when the bank gets notified if there's any liens on the property. That's when we assure that the homeowner is getting notified, and that's when most of these get resolved. Now, if that fails too, then that's when the property will go to the courthouse and get auctioned there. So that's kind of the process. I've done a lot of these in my last city, and end up only a handful, and most of those are vacant, where they're essentially worthless is really the ones that get to the end. So I'm confident that it's not going to come to that, but like I said in our email, that I'll be giving updates monthly just so you know where we stand and how that process goes.
Thank you. I, for one, appreciate that. I think it's time these people are calling our bluff. We need to make sure that we have the right hammer to come down and let them know. I do think they'll all correct themselves, but we had to raise our fines just recently. No one was listening, so we have to do what we do to improve it and add value to our city and the neighbors. That's the most important.
Yeah, and I will say the majority of people that we either give a warning to or fine, they correct it very quickly. We are lucky in this town that those people take care of their properties, but it is those few that generally the people don't live there and they just either forget about it or keep putting it off, and this is something that'll get their attention. The other thing is we do have I'll be submitting our second letter to Kentucky Transportation Cabinet about Route 8. We had a meeting last month where the cabinet is wanting us to take over ownership of the road in exchange for fixing it. We've done, we've met with staff, we've done extensive research, obviously over the last couple of years, and even more so in the last month. Frank has done a lot of geotech investigation this month. We're trying to figure out a way that we would be able to take over the road and not be a financial impact to us long term, and we can't figure that out. The road is too historically unstable to be able to take it over ourselves. We have created a plan to assist KYTC in maintaining that stretch of land, meaning cleaning out ditches and just some of the smaller stuff that our Public Works is able to do. So we're going to present that to them again this week, and hopefully we can get to a resolution to be able to open up Route 8 again and get traffic flowing. It was reassuring at the meeting with them that we are actually making progress, and we're actually at least talking about it and not just, kind of in dead air here in the last few months. But I do feel like we'll get to a resolution. But it is something that I'm not comfortable recommending to council to even vote on that. I think it's too much of a financial impact long term to be able to accept that portion of roadway. So, and that's 2.9 miles of roadway that they're talking about in their large stretch of old Route 8 there.
So you got the water districts, the 6 state water districts involved in those conversations?
I haven't gotten Cincinnati, but I have gotten all the other utilities down there. I have waited to talk to them, and most of the none of the utilities have offered any financial support, which is what I initially was asking for. But I have gotten in-kind support. So if we do have smaller slides that we can fix on our own, they do have equipment at the other utilities that can help us out. So those are the things that I'm trying to offer to KYTC to help out as the city, because we want it open. I mean, we have citizens down there, we have businesses down there. We want the road to be open, but to what extent? I mean, we can't take on this humongous $1 million liability, which is just not feasible right now for us to do until we've done some more research. We really have looked at this at all angles, even to them repairing it and giving us a certain amount of money we can put in escrow for that roadway. It still just doesn't. There's too much liability there for me to be able to be comfortable to accept right now.
Can you tell us the numbers? What it would cost just to repair it and then the yearly cost for the
Yeah, so the stretch they're referring to is 2.9 miles. And of that 2.9 miles, I believe it's about, let's mess this up, give me 1 second. I've been looking at this way too long to remember it all. It's really quiet in here. All right, so they're looking to repair essentially 45% of that area, and the state's repair is extremely good. It is the best the best repair fix that we've ever seen for a slide, and that's Frank, our city engineer, saying that. So we were actually really impressed with that. But out of that 45%, it leaves about 0.89 miles left of roadway that isn't being touched. Some of that roadway is not, 0.89 miles of roadway where we think there really won't be any future stuff, but we are concerned about the 0.74 miles that will likely need to be repaired moving forward. So the 45% that they're going to repair, they're estimating between $8 and $10 million to repair that. And again, it's a very good repair. However, they haven't factored in any uphill stuff. That is all downhill repair for the 8 to 10 million. So for the other portion that we do think that will need to be repaired likely in the next 5 to 10 years, it could be next year, it could be 11 years, we don't know, but we know there's another section of just about 3/4 of a mile that's going to need repair. We're estimating that to be about $5 to $6 million just for that section. And again, that's not uphill, and that some of that uphill is what we're really concerned about as well. That will need to be stabilized. We've identified 4 areas of uphill just of that 2.9 miles that will need to be stabilized at some point in the future. So once we start looking into that, initially we were thinking if they can repair it and give us maybe $5 million as an escrow, but that's just not, I don't feel comfortable in that. I mean, just the overlay for that section right now in today's dollars is 1.1 million just to do an overlay. That's of a repaired road that doesn't have any issues. Just to overlay is 1.1. Now in 20 years after this repair, I've estimated it's going to be about 1.8 with inflation. So I mean, the numbers are starting to add up if we look at this long term for the city taking over one 2.8 mile or 2.9 mile stretch their huge roadway, which another thing doesn't make any sense, in my opinion, is why are they're cutting their ownership off right there and just wanting us to take over that. There's a reason for it. So, like I said, we have done a lot of research because we want this to work, but I just can't recommend to council that it's a good idea for us to take this long-term liability over until there's something else. So our recommendation to them is, we will do the day-to-day. We'll do, any issues under 25,000 that come up that we can handle ourselves. We'll make sure all the drainage is cleaned out and all the culverts are cleaned and things like that. That's going to prolong that roadway. But we just cannot take that liability on for the 2.9 miles of the roadway. So,
I've all been down there enough over the years to see that it's always moving.
yeah, I mean, it's historically unstable. I mean, that's what I have in our memo. There's no other way to explain it. I've driven that since I was 16 when I worked in Dayton for years and years, and there could be a 6-inch difference by the time I went to work, by the time I came back. It just is what it is. So it's just not. It doesn't make sense for us to accept that liability, unfortunately.
No, but I think the plan we've worked out so far in the letter that we're working on now is a good answer. I think we need to. I'd like to emphasize that I think if we're willing to take over some of that routine maintenance, cleaning the ditches out on a regular basis. If with big heavy rain, we send somebody down with a pickup truck and a shovel, and if there's water going across the road, if there's something clogged up, we fix it right then. We can make that road last a lot longer. So the state repair plan that they have is really, really good. If they get that fixed and then we pay attention to it, I think we can make that road. I agree with what Matt's saying about the potential of future problems, but just us paying attention to it, I think will make a big difference, because the state just never did pay attention to it. And so all the drain lines would get clogged up. Well, guess what? Water creates the most problem for roads than anything else. And so if we can stay on top of that, I think once we get the fix in, once the state does that fix, I think we'll be able to handle that road better. So.
Do you have any reasonable expectations time-wise when they would, early on, when they would potentially do that?
No, I mean, like I said, I've been happy about the conversation we've been having. I mean, they're definitely working with this, but they're trying to get rid of this liability, and we just can't let them, completely get rid of it. So we'll be negotiating with them again. I do think we'll get to a solution, because I don't think anybody wants to abandon the road and leave it to the handful of citizens and businesses that are there, which cause a lot of more issues, and I don't think the state wants to either. So.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, so I understand how much they want to get rid of it. It was Route 8, then they changed it to a 4-digit route. The single-digit state routes have high priority, and 4 digits have low. So is that correct?
I don't know if that's why they did it. I think they did it just because they needed to reroute Route 8 to make it another location. I mean, they probably years ago should have made Route 8 Industrial Road, because that's the more logical connection. So I think that's why, obviously, they got tired of dealing with closures and having to do all that. But I don't know, essentially, I don't think they did it just to forget about it, but I could be wrong. So.
When they declassified it, they basically said, this is gonna end up being shut down.
Yeah, we're gonna take Route 8, move it around.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what we call this, it's just we don't want it.
Right.
Did they do a traffic study?
I mean, we've got traffic studies, the traffic count, and honestly, that's one of the things they cling to, is just there's not a high level. I mean, there's like I think when it was open, there was probably about 4,000 or 5,000 a day, which isn't a lot. That's what they're looking at. River Road. I mean, River Road's another city road that I frequently let them know about, because they do have issues there. The ditch needs to be cleaned out. Water, when we get heavy rains, we have to close down River Road a lot just because of the water coming off the hill. The ditches aren't cleaned out. And, when I push them to clean the ditches out, their response is there's only, 4,000 or 5,000 people that drive that road. So it's a low priority for them, which isn't a good answer, but it's an answer at least. So. All right. Sorry, I'll continue on here. I will be sending out an email to council here this week about the Campbell County Hazard Mitigation Committee. They are starting that up this past month, and they are interested in any council that would be interested in that. So I'll send you the details out. If anybody is interested in that, please let me know, and I'll get you hooked up with it. We do have staff on the committee that's going to be able to represent the city, but I did want to reach out to council if anybody was interested. We did get approached for a grant for design for the Riverfront Commons along Route 8 with South Bank. We have done this in the past. We didn't get approved last year, but we are going to submit that again, I believe, with South Bank. I'm still getting some more information. They are going to include Ludlow all the way to to Silver Grove at this point. So they've expanded it from last year's grant. And what that's going to do is just going to have a bike and walking trails from Ludlow to Silver Grove. And again, this grant is just for the design of that, which is critical if we would get that grant. That if you get a grant for the design, often you're going to get a federal grant for the construction as well. So just to let everybody know that is something that came up this month that I'm looking into, and I'll update you on that. I reached out to the swim club this week, see if they had any updates regarding their area that we stopped the spray ground discussion because of. I haven't gotten any updates from them other than that they were going to have a meeting the next night to decide if they were going to look at a new design, which I thought they were going to be doing that a couple months ago. So it seems like they're very behind on that, but I'll give you an update if I get anything else back from the president on that. We do have the bid for the sewer work that's necessary down at the Highland. That went out last week, and that opening will be on February 2nd, so I'll bring that to council next month once we get that. That was already bid out before, but we were hoping to get a lower bid if we separate it out, so I'll let you know next month how that goes. The day after the Planning Commission this month, we did have what we're calling office hours. The day after that meeting to discuss with council and the citizens any kind of anything from the meeting the night before or just zoning ordinance update in general. It seemed pretty successful. Got a lot of good comments on it. We'll continue that over the next couple months and evaluate the benefits after that to see if it's something we want to continue. Blossom Lane reconstruction. I'm not sure if some of the new council is aware of this, but we did agree to spend $20,000 put towards this project to lower the initial hump there on Blossom Lane when you go up from 27, which it's really that blind area. It is a part of the memorial development project up there, but it is going to make that road a lot safer. The bid came in at $182,000. I think that was about $40,000 over. They did come to us to ask for more money, which I politely said no, and we are going to stick with the $20,000. That was polite. But Southgate agreed to take over the extra money, and that bid was accepted and awarded by the fiscal court last week. So that construction should start here in the next month, I would think. I haven't heard any details, but I knew they were ready to move that quickly. Initial union contract negotiation will begin next week. So February is probably when the council and us will go into executive session to discuss, consider some of their requests and to provide the staff guidance moving forward once we get the negotiations underway. That contract does end here in June, so we'll need to update that this year. But just to let the council know that that's something that's going to come next month, and I should have some initial thoughts for that meeting at the next council meeting. Next month we do have two presenters. One will be Beth Johnson from the Cincinnati Preservation Association to talk about historical overlays, and then the other one was Rick Worth. He's a CEO of the Children's Home in Northern Kentucky. I have met with him a couple times. He is asking for the city to give the Children's Home in Northern Kentucky $50,000 or more of our ARPA funds. I have already explained that our ARPA funds have been allocated already, but he did want to come and talk to council and see if that was something that council would be interested in donating to that organization. Pending anyone's questions, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. That's very detailed. Interesting.
A lot of stuff going on. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Okay, we have On the agenda, no old business, new business. Do we have the finance committee report on disbursements, or is that? Sure.
It's my stuff anyway. Finance Committee report of disbursements from December 16th, 2022 through January 17th of 2023. General Fund, $219,489.04. Public Works KDOT Fund, $6,374.23. CBD Revitalization, $317,864.84. And I don't see Sharon in the audience to say, it's all city building expenses. It's all city building expenses, if she's listening. Waste fee, $102,459.68. Police and Fire Pension Fund, $1,563.07. For a total of $647,750.86. We, the undersigned members of the Finance Committee, recommend that warrants numbered 12309 through 12443 be approved and the treasurer be authorized to issue checks for their payment. Mr. Pendry, chairperson. Mr. Beazold, member. Mr. Strange, member.
Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion for that.
Is that received and filed, is that correct?
No, this is move to approve.
Move to approve.
There you go.
I'll second that.
Okay, and this is a roll call vote because it's about spending money. So, who's gonna do that? You're gonna do that?
I'll
Okay.
go ahead.
Roll call vote, please.
Jeff Beazle.
Aye.
Ben Pendry.
Aye.
Adam Blau.
Aye.
Andy Ellison.
Aye.
Lauren McIntosh. Eric Strange.
The list of names is different from their sitting. I'm sitting there going.
I haven't gotten that
We
sophisticated
haven't
yet.
figured that out. Okay. Everything.
This was a Saturday job, by the
Yeah.
way, so I was.
Okay, we are down to ordinance resolutions and orders. We have 3 ordinances and it looks like 4 executive orders.
Yes.
So, you gonna do this?
I will. Ordinance 012023. This is setting the time and location of council meetings from the mess hall to the city building. And this is a first reading.
So no actions necessary on that?
Ordinance 022023 is the adoption of supplement of code of ordinances. What this is to codify the ordinances that we have voted on in 2020 and 2021. And that is the first reading.
All right.
And ordinance 032023, this is a Wilbur's Lane appointment ordinance. What this is directs the city treasurer to prepare and distribute the assessment bill requiring all abutting property owners to pay the improvement assessment for Wilbur's Lane that is completed last year.
Which looks great, by the way. Boy, that was long overdue.
Then we have Executive Order 2020-22, that's appointing Lauren McIntosh to the Northern Kentucky District Board of Health. That is no action from council. It's an executive order from the mayor. Executive Order 21-2022, establishing city council committees for the 23-24 calendar year. Again, those are executive order from the mayor, no action needed. Executive Order 01-2023 is reappointing Terry Webster as a fairness officer for the city. 02-2023 is appointing Kim Bowman as the city's representative to Kemp County Board of Appeals. And that Board of Appeals is for PVA assessments for those that were asking. And no action is taken. That's all I have there.
We can't let you go, Ken. You gotta keep working for us.
Yeah, I appreciate that,
Thank
Ken.
you. Thank you for doing that. Wow. We're done. This was great. Thank you all for being here tonight. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Feel free to walk around the public spaces. Check out the restrooms if you haven't seen those. See all the wonderful tile and stuff that Sherry found.
Well, and I just think that the design committee has